Hi everyone, I'm Bill Rosinski and welcome to another edition of Sportsnight at South End Brewery in the South Charlotte area here in the Carolinas. I'm going to be talking football for the next half hour, and joining me first on the show, the fine beat writer for the Charlotte Observer who covers the Carolina Panthers, Pat Yasinskas. Pat, always good to see you.
Good to see you.
Pat and I are old buddies. We see each other a lot. Let's talk football, and in particular the Panthers. Gone through the draft, a lot of needs on this football team. And I find it interesting that as we look at this organization, the Panthers, and they've had a couple of really good seasons under John Fox. Last year wasn't so good.
Right.
Their defense had a lot of quality players, guys signed through 2007, for example. Well, lo and behold, here we are in 2007. Brenson Buckner is gone. Al Wallace is gone. Mike Rucker's coming off an injury.
Mike Minter's coming off an injury.
Mike Minter, yeah. And this is his last year on this team. We don't know about Dan Morgan. All of a sudden I look at this defense and I'm thinking, well, what do you got here? Short term and long term.
Well, they got one thing, Julius Peppers, who may be the best pass rusher in the world, but and that's a good start. But you're right, they have gotten old in a lot of areas, and they're going to need some of these young people to step up in a hurry. If they're going to fix these things that were going wrong on an 8-8 team last year, they're going to need some production from rookies, and that's a lot to ask.
Do you think Marty Herney and John Fox are all of a sudden looking at this roster going, well, now wait a minute, we had this team set a couple of years ago. Has it caught up with them, do you think?
I think to some degree the age has with Minter and Rucker, but I mean, they're only a year removed from being everyone's Super Bowl favorite. Now, granted, that was just on paper and it really didn't mean anything. But you think back to a year ago at this time, you looked at that roster and you thought, these guys are set up, for a long time. They're going to be good for a long time. So I think that one of the big keys this year will be getting some of those injured guys back, and if they can play like they did before their injuries, be it Dan Morgan, Travell Wharton, Mike Wall. I mean, they had a bunch of guys injured last year, and that's a big part of the reason why they were 8-8. And Marty Herney and John Fox obviously gave this a lot of thought, and they went into free agency and largely sat still. Planning and knowing that they believed in the guys they had coming back from injuries.
Let's talk about Dan Morgan and the concussions. And I know recently out in Los Angeles, they had a symposium with doctors talking about concussions, in particular in the NFL. They literally showed autopsy photos of Mike Webster of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right. The Long, who drank antifreeze and basically committed suicide. And Andre Waters, they talked about him, and they're calling it NFL dementia. This is a very serious issue. And I was telling somebody the other day, man, every time I'm going to watch Morgan, boy, if he lays a lick on somebody, I'm going to turn my head and go, I hope he gets up.
Yeah, I was reading some of the stuff that came out of that symposium, and Lee Steinberg, the agent, was talking about Troy Aikman. And a couple hours after a game where he had a concussion, he was asking Lee, hey, did we play a football game today? And Lee was like, yeah. And Troy was like, how'd we do? And he didn't even know. It's scary stuff. And, it applies right here in Charlotte with the Dan Morgan situation. Now, out in Phoenix last month at the owners' meeting, I talked with Jerry Richardson and John Fox, both at length about the Dan Morgan situation and why they're comfortable allowing him back on the field. And they both are comfortable in what their team doctors have told them, what the concussion specialist doctors have told them. They say that Dan's concussions are not that advanced, that he's had this time off, and his brain has had time to heal, and that they've done everything they can, and they're confident that he can go back out there. I hope it all works out for them, and I hope Dan Morgan never gets hurt again, but it's an awful risky thing.
Well, if you're Mike Turkovac, don't you have to have two game plans every week?
Yeah,
one with Dan and one without?
Yeah, pretty much. And, that's what they've been doing throughout his career, because besides the concussions, he's had some other injuries, unfortunately. And Dan Morgan is such a great player when he's on the field, and I think people forget about that because he's been off the field so much. I just love to see the guy have one season where he could go 16 games and stay out there and see what the end results would be, because I think it'd be pretty special.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that Super Bowl game he played. He had about 23, 25 tackles, something like that. All right, let's talk about the offensive side of the ball, because the Panthers were not very active in free agency, but they did get David Carr, quarterback out of Houston. It was awful. More on his back than he was standing up. And the interesting thing about him and the people I talked to who covered the Texans, they said, you know what, you're getting a really good kid, a lot of talent, but he just needs to sit back. He's taken such a beating there, both physically and mentally. It'll do him good just to sit and watch football for a while.
Absolutely. I agree totally with that, and I think that's a lot of David Carr's thinking coming into this. I know some people who are on his advisory team, let's say, and when he first knew that he was going to be available, the initial reaction was Oakland, Cleveland, Detroit, somewhere that needs a quarterback right away. But some of his advisors said, David, think about this a little bit. If you go to Oakland, it's going to be the same thing all over again. You're going to be on your back all the time. You're going to take a beating again. Maybe you need to go step back and go to a good team as a backup and wait your turn, see if things work out. Maybe get your confidence back as well. And if your turn does come, you're there with a good team around you, and maybe you'll look great. And you're only 27 years old, and you can sign a long-term contract and be set again. So I think it's a very smart move for the Panthers and for David Carr.
Yeah, because he could be. Jake's, he's in his early, 32, I think?
32, yeah.
You could play till you're 40, but the Panthers, in their drafts, they've always had the projects, the Randy Fasani's, Brett Bassinet now. This is the first, I think, and even with Chris Weinke, I think in the back of our minds, we remember that 1-15 season. He gave him a great chance. He came off the bench in that Detroit game a couple of seasons ago, but given the opportunities he had this past season, it was a bust.
Yeah.
This team had to do something at the quarterback spot and not bring in another project.
Right. And, it could be a situation where he's an eventual replacement for Jake, but it's also a situation where, think back to last season, there were a lot of cries from fans and media for Jake to be out of there, and they didn't really have that alternative as we all saw last season. Now with David Carr, you do have an alternative, and I think John Fox and Marty Herney obviously know that they need that alternative because they're in a situation where their seat's getting a little hot after an 8-8 season. They have to win this year, and they need somebody that they can feel comfortable turning it over to if Jake struggles again. And I think David Carr fits that bill. And if he doesn't play, then that means Jake's having a great season and everything's good. So it's a win-win situation.
The schedule came out. I found it was interesting in that the Panthers make one national television appearance, and it will be on the NFL Network, which means the least amount of people will see the Panthers. Were you kind of surprised? I saw that Indianapolis game that has a lot of pretty good storylines to it, including Bill Polian. Peyton Manning is going to be his only appearance in Charlotte in his career. And I saw some other games, the Tampas, the Atlantas, where it might be national, but nothing.
Yeah, I was shocked. I thought they'd get one. Even after an 8-8 season, I thought this team has enough star power, with Steve Smith, Julius Peppers, and all that. And they certainly had some good storylines, but I don't know, maybe the NFL is paying them back for last year for disappointing. I couldn't understand it.
All right. The rest of this team offensively, do you anticipate them using both Foster and D'Angelo Williams at the same time? Jeff Davidson's the offensive coordinator now. What does he bring to the table? How's he different than Dan Henning?
I think we're going to see a lot of different things. First of all, they're changing their whole blocking scheme to the zone blocking, which I think their personnel is better suited to it. Start with the offensive line. You got guys like Jordan Gross, Mike Wall, Travell Wharton. They're all guys that can move a little bit. They're not necessarily the big maulers, and they can get out there in space and make things happen. And I think it also suits Williams and Foster much better with their running style. They can do more of the stretch plays, more of the cutback running, and I think that's one thing that Dan didn't do last year. He didn't adjust to his personnel well enough, and I think you're going to see a lot more D'Angelo Williams than we did last year. He was a rookie last year. Foster came in as a starter, didn't really run away with anything, and I think Williams will go to camp with a chance to compete with him and could end up being a feature back, but I think you'll see a pretty healthy mix of the two of them.
3rd and 1, who do you give the ball to?
That's a great question. You can always snap it to D'Angelo Williams.
Yeah.
No, I think Eric Shelton will certainly get one more look in training camp. Maybe, who knows, maybe it's a fresh start. I think he and Dan Henning didn't mesh real well. and maybe this is the fresh start Eric needs. Certainly has the size to do it. If not, there's always Brad Hoover. Other than that, there aren't too many options, but Brad Hoover's done a lot of different things for this team through the years, and he can do it again if he has to.
Let's talk about long-term Julius Peppers and Steve Smith. Smith has watched over the last few years after signing his deal,
right,
a number of receivers who aren't as good as he is, making a lot more money than he is. Julius Peppers also is going to demand mucho dinero. How do you see this playing out with this team? Can the Panthers keep both these guys?
I think they can, and I asked Jerry Richardson that same question at the owners' meeting, and he said absolutely that that's all in the plans and that they will work very hard to do that. The one thing he did say, and I agree with it, is there will be a trickle-down effect. It means they can't have, right now they have maybe 7, 8 marquee players. That number might have to go down to 5 or 6, and they might have to have a few younger players and rely on younger players more. So there will be an effect of that, but I think it's critical that they sign these two guys long-term. They're still in their prime. They're probably, if not the best, they're two of the best at their respective positions, and the Panthers absolutely have to find a way to keep them.
Pat Yasinskas, Charlotte Observer, beat writer, covers the Carolina Panthers. Our guest, when we come back, I should say it is what it is. Right.
John
It
Fox.
is what it is. Ronaldo Turnbull joins us, former Panther, started with the New Orleans Saints. We'll talk about his life in the NFL and what he's doing now. Stay right there.
Sports Night at South End Brewery is brought to you by South End Brewery and Smokehouse, offering fine cuisine, custom crafted beers, and the #1 microbrewery in the South. And by Imbo Furniture, Scandinavian and contemporary design.
Relax and let your thoughts drift away in a Stressless, the ultimate recliner. Designed to support you perfectly in any position. Relax your body, free your mind in a Stressless.
Come, experience Stressless at Imbo Furniture in Cornelius.
You don't have to be this fit to read Charlotte Health and Fitness magazine, but let Charlotte Health and Fitness magazine help you maximize your active lifestyle. Every month, CHF readers enjoy features on the best places to get fit, look great, and have fun. CHF is now available for home or office delivery. For a limited time, visit chfmag.com and sign up to receive your complimentary copy today.
Welcome to Stressless, the recliner that lets you create your own personal comfort zone. With a smooth reclining glide system that eases your body into the perfect position for total relaxation. Plus full lumbar support and a headrest that adjusts automatically. Stressless. Relax your body, free your mind.
Come, experience Stressless at Imbo Furniture in Cornelius. Sports Night at South End Brewery is brought to you by South End Brewery and Smokehouse, offering fine cuisine, custom crafted beers, and the #1 microbrewery in the South. And by Imbo Furniture, Scandinavian and contemporary designs.
Welcome back to Sports Night at South End Brewery. I'm Bill Rosinski. In 1990, Ronaldo Turnbull was a first-round draft pick of the New Orleans Saints. He spent 7 years there and then finished his career with the Carolina Panthers, and he joins us now as our guest. Ronaldo, great to see you.
Thank you.
Hard to believe that was 17 years ago.
I know.
You were a first-round pick of the Saints. Do you remember, we've gone through the NFL draft again. Do you remember those moments as you waited to see where you were going to play?
Well, it's kind of interesting because my agent was Bruce Allen. And when we went out there, it was my fiance and myself, and we told Bruce the day before we were going horseback riding, which he wasn't too keen on that. But I can remember, we came back and just the whole experience is sometimes sort of a blur, but it seems like just waiting to be drafted, to me at least,